Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So this video I've been meaning to do for many days. It's an old speech by Peter Beck at the Auckland Business School. This is from the early days of Rocket Lab before Electron, and I think that this is a good video for Rocket Lab investors to watch to really understand how much Peter Beck has overcome. You will see in this video that they had to bet the whole company on the Athia rocket. And they would have gone bankrupt if that rocket doesn't fly on the first try, and they did it. Keep in mind, Falcon 1 blew up 3 times before it could fly the 4th time. A lot of rockets blew up, and these guys managed on their first try. Then he goes over how they never had money, and the only way that they could overcome this problem was by actually making stuff that works, and thereby proving guys how they can get investments. And there's much more. So you will really see the early days of Rocket Lab, the early culture that is still very much within the company. And it will just increase your confidence that Neutron is going to come very soon. And everything is going to be all right. But it is a longer video, so you can speed it up if you want. You can click here on YouTube and increase the speed. I'm going to put subtitles because the audio is not perfect. And yeah, if you feel you get value out of the channel, you can make sure you're subscribed, and you can also join the channel membership. Like the last month, 3 of you guys have joined, which really warms my heart. Thank you. Or you can join Patreon. There's a link in the description box below. You get both at the same places, which is pretty much nothing. You get access to my models, but it's more just to support the channel. And thank you very much. So we start the video. It's a long one, but I think it's worth it if you're a long-term Rocket Lab investor.
Firstly, thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to everybody here today. Just while they're sorting that out. So, how many people know what Rocket Lab does? Anybody? A few? Okay. So basically, we're a company that builds rockets, unsurprisingly enough. But more focused, we're an ideas house, and we back it with in-house capability, credibility, and partnerships. So one of the things about doing this sort of business in New Zealand is that there is nobody else. So there is no Boeing, there is no Northrop Grumman, there's no ATK down the road to get you to build a rocket nozzle, to get you to do some avionics, to get you to do anything. And trying to buy that stuff in from the United States into New Zealand is impossible because of the international trades and arms restrictions ITAR. So basically we're forced to be a complete one-stop shop. So we do absolutely everything, from electronics, avionics, through to launch vehicles, through to propulsion systems, through to launching. You name it, we do it. So that gives us a really interesting niche, really within the industry, because in the United States, if you're a rocket company, you specialise in propulsion, or you specialise in flight dynamics, or you specialise in rocket nozzles, and then there's more specialist fields even in that. So it's really rare to have all of those things under one roof, and that gives us quite a lot of competitive advantages. So we work with a number of companies and organisations within the United States. We're basically a 100% export company. We don't really do much in New Zealand. Who knows what DARPA, the organisation DARPA? Excellent, that's great. Must be engineers. So for you who don't know who DARPA is, they were basically formed when the Russians put Sputnik into space, and they're tasked directly by Congress in the United States to make sure the United States never lags behind in any technology field ever again. So that's their job. You may be aware of some of their work, the internet, GPS. So they only fund game-changing technologies. If you go to DARPA and say, I've got a widget which gives you a 2% improvement, they'll tell you to go away. If you go to DARPA and you say, I've got this concept, I have no idea whether it'll work, but if it works, it's a game changer, they're interested. So they're basically our biggest customer.
But is it perfect just technology?
Well, that's primarily their focus, yeah. So they're tasked by Congress to keep the United States at the head of technology, head of the race. Sorry?
Was I okay interrupting one
Yeah. Anybody, go for gold. You might be familiar with that organisation, so we work with those guys. ORS, Operation Responsive Space. So these guys, once again, tasked directly by Congress to get stuff into orbit cheap. That's their job. So we work with those guys as well. So our core business, if you break down what we actually do, is we do propulsion, a lot of propulsion, engineering, modelling, all the things you need to be able to go and do propulsion and launch vehicles. Electronic systems, so avionics, guidance control, that sort of stuff, which ultimately results in us being able to produce space and defence products. We're a company of firsts. We've done some stuff. So we've done some stuff. We've got 3 current programs running within the company at the moment. VLM, which is a new propulsion system, stands for viscous liquid monopropellant. And then there's InstantEye, which is a rapid deployed, hand-launched UAV system. So basically, you hold onto a tube which has got a rocket in it, and you launch it, and it's a UAV system. We can talk about more of that in more detail later. And then there's our orbital program, because we're going orbital. So what is an entrepreneur and what's needed? Well, personally, I don't class myself as an entrepreneur. I think people who call themselves entrepreneurs actually aren't. I'm just trying to get a job done, and it just happens to be a bit of fun along the way. But I guess what is needed, you need some ideas. You can't be risk adverse, that's for sure, which sort of leads on to the next one, which is a little bit politically incorrect, but you definitely need big balls, and the bigger the idea, the bigger balls you need. You need to be absolutely and completely passionate and motivated. You've got to be ready for some hard work, and you've got to create your credibility, and then most importantly, you've got to deliver, because if you don't deliver, then you're out of business. So these are my opinions. So they could be right, they could be wrong. You choose, but I'll give you my opinions anyway, and I'll give them to you with respect to Rocket Lab. So first thing you need is an idea. And my idea was building rockets and going to space. And in New Zealand, I hear some giggles in the room, that's usually typical. In New Zealand, that is considered nutty, absolutely nutty. If you're in the United States, it's not nutty, it's just part of commerce. You just go to space, it's just a business. And that's part of the challenge that Rocket Lab's always faced. Is I remember when we had our big official company opening, we contacted central government to let them know that somebody in New Zealand was going to send some stuff to space, and they ought to know about it. And they thought it was a great joke, and ended up getting invited to one of the minister's office to have a talk to me. And turns out he told me later that he just thought this was a great joke, and he wanted to see what nutty person was actually going to do this. But once we explained exactly what we're doing and how we're doing and the opportunities, he became a very strong supporter. So first thing you need is a good idea, and a really bloody good one, because if it's not, then you're not going to go anywhere. But the trick is that a lot of people will tell you that your idea is crap. I mean, my case in point, just about everybody that you could talk to said, well, that's a stupid idea. How can New Zealand compete with the United States? How can a little company on the other side of the world compete with Boeing and Lockheed Martin and all those sorts of things? So a lot of people will tell you that your idea is crap, but I mean, you've got to have a bit of belief in yourself along the way.
But presumably, as time goes by, the technology gets more refined and it's easier to do.
Oh, absolutely. That goes with any technology. Yeah, I mean, to launch a rocket into space 20 years ago was a lot more difficult than it is now. I mean, that's a fact. Absolutely. Risk. So, got to be prepared to take risk, and that risk can mean a lot of things. It can mean engineering risk, it can mean credibility risk, it can mean financial risk. Usually it means all of those things. So the risk for Rocket Lab is, when we started, if we went over to the United States and said, we're a rocket company, we're going to be a rocket company, we're going to build rockets, we're going to launch stuff into space, and essentially be a PowerPoint company like a lot of other companies, especially in the United States, get absolutely nowhere. Throw into the mix that we're a small, island nation in the middle of nowhere, we're not the United States. We wouldn't have got, if we, for example, we rocked on up to DARPA and said, look, we've got these ideas, with having no credibly done nothing, there's absolutely no way that they would have talked to us. So we made the internal strategy for us was, we're going to build a launch vehicle and we're going to go to space. And we're going to prove that we can actually do what we say we're going to do, rather than try and turn up with a PowerPoint. And not only are we going to do that, we're going to do it in a way that is really industry controversial. So we could have built a launch vehicle, the RTO1, we could have built it a poggy old solid, real traditional technology, done nothing special at all and just gone to space. And that's a good achievement. But what we needed to do was really stamp our mark. So we built an all hybrid vehicle. We did things that are talked about in the industry like wireless safe arm and fire devices, but nobody's ever really does, because it's all unproven technology, and a whole lot of stuff that within the industry is you just don't do that. But it'd be nice to do it. So the launch vehicle itself was really quite special, and we got we got a bit of flack in the media about how small our rocket was, and there's an indication of how people don't understand. So our rocket on the pad weighed 65 kilograms, which is absolutely nothing, and it launched 2 kilograms to about 120 kilometres altitude. And now you might think, well, that's not a very spectacular rocket, it's only 65 kilograms, you're used to these giant behemoths. Now, our competition using the same propulsion technology was 620 kilograms in mass to do the same job. So when we launched ours, everybody said in New Zealand, man, that's a small rocket, stink. Everyone in the United States said, how the hell did you make that thing so small? So it's just that the difference in knowledge bases. But I mean, cutting to the chase, we took a huge risk with that rocket on the launch pad. That rocket had a safety factor of 1.1 to 1.2 on just about every component. So that means that the pressure vessel held 1,000 psi. At 1,100 psi, it was shrapnel. So every little piece on that vehicle had a safety factor of ridiculously small, and we pushed the limits to as far as you possibly could. And we did that because we wanted to build a vehicle that weighed 65 kilograms, not 620 odd kilograms. So as a result, I'm diverging a bit, but the point is that if that rocket blew up on the pad, we wouldn't have been in business. That would have been the end of Rocket Lab, right there and then. So we took a huge risk, both technically, financially, but we knew that if we could pull it off, we would get to talk to people like DARPA, we'd get to work with people like NASA, because all of a sudden, it's people have, how did you do that? So second thing you need is courage, we'll say. So, like I was saying before, is a lot of people will tell you that your idea is really crap. And like I was saying, the bigger the idea, the more people will tell you it's crap. But you've just got to push through it. And I mean, chances are your idea probably is crap, and it probably will fail. But, if you don't push through it, then you could miss out on something quite spectacular. So, I guess, don't be afraid to just put your balls on the line. Passion and motivation. You need to be absolutely passionate about your idea, about your business, and you need to be highly, highly motivated. If it's just sort of a fun thing that you'd like to try, don't even bother, don't waste your time. If you're not an extremely motivated person by nature, like you're a person who comes home, sits on the couch, watches a bit of telly, goes to bed, don't bother. You've got to be absolutely motivated in whatever you do. If you're the kind of guy who comes home, sit down, watch television for 5 minutes, bored as hell with it, goes and do your sport or whatever there you do in your spare time, then it's for you. But if you're not motivated, just don't even waste your time. hard work. You've got to be prepared for massive amounts of hard work. It looks, you sort of think, oh yeah, this looks a bit easy, doesn't look too bad. But the reality is, it's just enormously hard work. I mean, and you get out what you put in as well. Not all the time. Sometimes you'll put in heaps and fail miserably, but that's just the way it is. Be prepared to lose all your sleep. That's for sure. So the other thing is credibility, getting into business. So with Rocket Lab, as you know, we took a huge risk and built that rocket and away we went. Now you can apply that theory to whatever product you've got. I don't know, this cup, for example. You can make a PowerPoint of that cup. You can talk about it, but you actually go out there and make it, prove that it works, and gain some credibility with it. Then you're in a much forward position. I guess you'll see a recurring theme here is a lot of people talk about doing it. Like most people talk about doing it, but actually just going out there and physically creating something is, for me, is the key. And then finally, once you've done a bit, you've done whatever you're going to do. You've created your cup. Oh, good, I've created a cup. Then you've got to deliver. So it's all very good and well to raise some capital, go out there, make your product, but the hard work is after you've done all that. If you think, for Rocket Lab, launching that rocket was the hardest thing, absolutely not at all. The hardest thing is after that, is growing the company, staying in business, and moving forward. That's my opinion anyway. So I kept it short because I thought there'd be some questions. So please, open the floor.
What do you mean by we? I mean, who's in Rocket Lab apart from your company or team?
Well, there's 10 of us there and a couple of PhDs. In the beginning, there was just 2 of us, but yeah. And well, that's who's employed at Rocket Lab. I mean, in the wider team, we've got we have relationships with lots of different organisations and universities, and if you want to count them as part of the team, then you do that as well. Yeah.
What's your vision for Rocket Lab and the long term? What sort of dreams do you have for New Zealand's future?
Yep, that's a great question. Well, I'm putting something in orbit, so that's what I'm doing. I've got to achieve that before I die, and it just so happens that there's a really, really good commercial model there to do that. If you look at what's happening within our industry at the moment, space shuttle's out, government-funded programs, old hat. It's all about commercial space now. You look at SpaceX and the Falcon 9. I mean, I'm probably not space geeks, but I mean, it's all going commercial, and New Zealand and Rocket Lab in particular is really nicely poised to capture a particular niche market of very small satellites for a number of reasons. But yep, so we want to be launching something to orbit every month is our goal.
Is there anything about New Zealand that makes it a particularly attractive place to work?
Yes, there is. There's lots, and I'll explain some of the good things and some of the bad things. The great thing is that it's never been done before in New Zealand. So that covers both thinking from an engineering perspective, business, regulatory environment, all of that sort of stuff. It's never been done before. One of the reasons that some of the organisations like working with us, if they've got a problem, they'll give a problem to half a dozen United States universities to solve. And they'll all go back to their textbooks, back to their lecturers, back to their Lockheed Martins and their Boeings, and they'll all come back with the same piece of 50-year-old heritage hardware, the way it's taught, this is how you do it, and there it is. They come to Rocket Lab, we don't have any of that. We don't know what can't be done. And we'll look at the problem and go, well, we'll just do it this way. And the solution is just orders of magnitude different to what the traditional industry. So that's a great thing about being in New Zealand is the regulatory environment, the lack of knowledge and the lack of constraints. But the bad thing is the converse, because we learn hard lessons too, because we don't have that experience. And, I think probably our motor explosion rate is higher than some of the others in the industry for sure, but we also don't know what boundaries exist, so we tend to push them where other people say, well, you don't do that because it didn't work 50 years ago. But give it a go now. So, but there's pluses and minuses.
Can I ask another question? What fuel are you using? Because I know some of the fuels have been used in the past and quite toxic.
That's another thing about our propulsion. So, okay, in the industry it's polarised. There's liquids or solids. There's only two, and when I say like, so liquid fuels, where liquid fuel rocket motor is where you've got two liquids, a liquid oxidizer and a liquid fuel, and you inject them with turbo pumps into the combustion chamber and away you go. A solid fuel rocket is all solid, and it's like a firecracker, so like a skyrocket. So you light it and it burns and it doesn't stop burning until it's depleted its propellant. So in the United States especially, there's two industries. Now if you're a liquids guy, you go solids, yucky old solids, toxic, horrible solids. If you're a solids guy, you go liquids are for drinking. Who would do that? So it's really, really polarised in the United States. We do liquids, solids, hybrids, and our VLM, which is something in between, and seamlessly cross over all those disciplines. And that's sort of what makes us a little bit special in the propulsion side of things as well, is we don't necessarily have a preference for solids or have a preference for liquids or anything like that. So to answer your questions, we do liquids, we do hybrids, so propellants for liquids, I mean, huge list, but typically liquid oxygen and kerosene. Hybrids, nitrous oxide and HTPBs, solids, HTPB, and then viscous liquid monopropellants, can't tell you. So.
No, I was visited with something called unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrazine.
Oh, you don't want to go near that stuff.
Major environmental problems in the alternative.
It still does. The trouble with hydrazine is it is a really good fuel. It's just toxic as hell, like parts per million and you're dead. But that's
what I've heard, that the rapid space program liked it because it's the fuel.
Yeah. Yep, it killed a lot of people.
But that dimethyl hydrazines are not hydrazine itself, right? It's a compound.
Yeah.
Modified form of hydrazine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you're trying to avoid some of the ones
Oh, we'd never touch hydrazine. No way. It's always the way though. Anything that's really, really good is really, really dangerous and really bad. It's just the way it is.
Well, it's like that beryllium with the outside.
Yeah.
Initially, when you started off with that, did you have the intention of going commercial with that, or did you just want to send something out to the States, then research and then?
No. I mean, absolutely commercial from day one. I mean, in the very early days, we secured some venture capital, some angel investment, and you don't do that with a dream. It's got to be commercial.
Has anything else in the summer industry that dropped up like after you guys did it, like similar ventures?
No, we're still pretty much the only company in the Southern Hemisphere doing this stuff. Yeah.
Would you be able to give an outline of some of your products and technologies a little bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. So going back to the three programs, VLM, viscous liquid monopropellant, it's not a solid, it's not a liquid, it's sort of a funky fluid solid in between those, and that's funded directly by DARPA, and that's all I can say about that. Now, the other product is InstantEye, which is, that's that product there. So basically, cut a long story short, I was watching Discovery Channel one night, and they were on one of those future weapons it was, where they were showcasing this new UAV system, and there was a soldier who was hunkered behind a wall getting shot at, and they were saying, this is great, he's pulling out this UAV out of his backpack, he's assembling this UAV, and then he's flying it, getting intelligence to find out who's shooting at him. And they're saying, isn't this great? And not only do you have to assemble this thing, and you've got to become a pilot, it takes 5 minutes. And I thought, that is just crap. There's got to be a better way of getting intelligence for that. So I'm a great favour for rockets, as you saw. So basically what the concept was is it's packaged in a tube about that high, 50 millimetres round, weighs 500 grams. This tube just sits in a soldier's backpack. And when he's hunkered down and someone's shooting at him, he pulls out this tube, pushes the button, pop, And this thing within 13 seconds is at 2,500 feet, relaying ultra high definition video with GPS referenced and compass reference data to his mobile device, whether it be a military rover or an iPhone or an iPad, and he can decide within between 15 and 20 seconds if he's going to run or hide, or is there a tank there? Yes, I'm out of here. Is there somebody there? And yeah, so that's basically that. And we took the concept to a US company and formed a joint venture called InstantEye Corporation, funny enough. And so that's the product. We just finished it a few months ago, and it's currently at some defence organisations being tested.
Where's the camera on it, and how does it actually take? Does it wait till it gets to the top of its trajectory?
Yep, sensors apogee, and the camera's right at the nose. So it's a funky little vehicle. It pulls 30 Gs out of the launch tube, spins up from 0 to 6,000 RPM in 0.8 of a second, and then reaches apogee, as I say, so around about 13 seconds, and then deploys its parachute and stabilises itself, and then takes these images and georeferences and all that sort of stuff. So that entire project, from concept to testing, was about 10 months. So, so that's that product. And then our other major program is our orbital program. So we've got a team working on that. With the ultimate goal is to send around about between 25 and 50 kilograms into LEO, which is sort of a sweet spot for small satellites.
But that's not geostate.
No, not geostate. No.
Thanks for your talk, Peter. Forgive me for asking an amateur question, but compared to, say, the RT-01, what sort of scale of rockets required to send a small payload into orbit?
Huh. So RT-1165, we're sitting at around about 5 tonnes for that vehicle. Yep.
What's the most, in terms of cost per kilogram of payload, what's the most economical size of rockets to use?
Well, it's a tricky one. Generally, the bigger the better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the bigger the better. However, that's not always the case. And the thing is with satellites, in the satellite industry at the moment, is it's all going small. Electronics have miniaturised, propulsion systems are miniaturised, everything's miniaturised. So the need for these 5-tonne behemoths on orbit, costing $1 billion in 10 years to put up there, is fast decreasing. What everybody wants is a real cheap satellite, a real cheap launch, put it onto orbit. If your orbit decays fast and you only get 2 years out of it, it's so cheap, and chances are you want to retask the satellite anyway, just send up another one. So that's the way the industry's moving.
So in terms of energy efficiency, the big rockets are better, but in terms of the time it takes to design them, small rockets.
Yeah, and the thing is, if a big rocket goes up, like if the big rocket has a failure, I should say,
Yeah. Like,
you've lost $1 billion or more in 10 years. If a little rocket has a failure, next week you put another one up.
why 10 years?
Well, typically that's how long it takes to go from concept conception through the funding cycle through to
so
all the
if
development.
If it fails, it means there's something wrong with the design.
Well, no, rockets fail all the time. I mean, rockets with 30, 40 year heritages fail because it's just the nature of the business. I mean, stuff goes wrong. It only takes one tiny little thing to not work 100% and it's over.
What are major customers in space commercialization? Will it be just the satellite industry?
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, there's space tourism and all that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, the space industry is driven by two things: defence and commercial industry, such as comms, satellites, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
There is no recycling or any resource gathering in space for the industry right now.
Oh, there's talks about it. I mean, DARPA have got a program where they're trying to resurface satellites to send up another satellite that's out of life and fill up its propellant tanks and give it another 10, 15 years. So there's stuff like that going on. But as far as mineral extraction and stuff like that, it still doesn't make commercial sense. So.
Just really on from that, how New Zealand is all very clean and green, and has been also advocated towards sustainability. Has that
Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, what is efficiency? I mean, you can build a ginormous rocket that carries, like I say, 5-ton payload, that might stay up there for 5 or 10 years or 5 years. You look at the resources required from, the entire holistic picture of the resources required to put that one satellite up. Is that a better use of the Earth's resources than 5 or 10 little satellites on little rockets that do the same job? And the answer is yes, it is. And that's why the industry it costs less too, so that's why the industry is gravitating towards that way. I've got no desire to build these big rockets. Some people, big is better and all that. I mean, the little stuff is it is efficient. So.
You started on day one, it was commercial. You might tell me where is the source of your capital?
Yep, so initially it was through an angel investor, and then basically we're funded through the programs that we do for our customers. It's a lovely, lovely business model because they fund us and we own the intellectual property at the end of it. So it doesn't get much better than that. Whereas if you're going out to the venture capital market, then all of a sudden you start diluting equity.
Yeah, going back to the beginning, would you mind telling us how did you conceive the idea? Was it when you were a kid you always had a passion for rockets, or just because you were studying?
That's me in when was that? 2001. Always like rockets. Yeah. I mean, like every teenager, I started off doing, mucking around with cars, and I built up a Mini, and then I turbocharged it, and it just seemed such a pathetic way of making power, the internal combustion engine. So then I started to muck around with stuff that had a bit more energy density in. So yeah, it was right from day one.
I started something to be interested for my own reasons. I thought rockets were only energy efficient when they approach the speed of sound. Is that right?
No, that's when they're least efficient. That's a transonic reason. That's the least efficient.
So can you have why can't you have an aeroplane hooked up by a rocket without gas?
Well, you can, but I mean, with a rocket you're carrying your oxidizer. A gas turbine, the oxidizer is there for free in the atmosphere.
So can you have like a rocket that's efficient at say car driving speed, 100 kilometres an hour?
You could, but where rockets really excel is packing a whole lot of energy into a really small space and releasing it really fast. That's weird.
But I mean, could you get reasonable efficiency, say at only 100 kilometres per hour?
No.
No, so really that's I don't know.
Put it this way. In this bottle of wine,
Yeah.
I could probably fit around about 1,000 horsepower in this bottle of wine.
So 1 megawatt, a rocket.
Yep.
That can produce a megawatt of
Yep.
mechanical power.
Yep. Might only be for half a second, but
Yeah.
I'll fit 1,000 horsepower in there.
But what sort of, because it only gets efficient. But I think the rocket only becomes efficient when it reaches the vehicle's propelling exercise speed.
Well, you're talking about two different things here. One's propulsion and one's vehicle dynamics.
I think we're running out of time, so
Cool.
we'll show one more question if we don't mind.
Yep.
You're talking about like how you've got, your business, like how much of, like, can you sort of self-sufficient, you don't require funding from like DARPA or NASA to survive at the moment, or are you still reliant on them?
No, we're kind of like a consultancy business, if you want to look at that sort of model. So we require projects to sustain ourselves. I mean, we have products, as you know, with the InstantEyes, and that's transitioning in to become our bread and butter, if you would. But there is most US companies are funded through that way, aerospace companies. If you look at the amount of investment that the big, the giants make in R&D, it's like 1%, even though they've got a 10% R&D budget, 9% of that is funded by their governments. Bye.